Hello, it is lovely to have you here tonight for part two of the Nature of Shakespeare. Part one was great, and I hope you were able to see it. We are all pleased that you are here for this evening's event, and it is great to have such a large audience. So welcome everyone to the Nature of Shakespeare Part 2. I am Cheryl White, Coordinator of Visitor Engagement and Exhibitions at the Arnold Arboretum. It has been so exciting to be part of this new undertaking as the Arnold Arboretum of Harvard University and Actors Shakespeare Project again bring you theater in our landscape, a virtual landscape. Both of our organizations are here in the Boston area, but this is so special that a virtual presentation allows us to welcome audience members from near and far. This production was made possible through the generosity of Peter and Leslie Ciampi, and I want to send them an enormous thank you. This is the second part of the Nature of Shakespeare. If you missed part one or would like to see this part again, you can see them on the Arnold Arboretum YouTube channel or Actors Shakespeare Project's Facebook page. After our film, I really encourage you to stay for a question and answer talkback with two of our show's actors and our hosts. I would now like to welcome both of our hosts, Ned Friedman, the director of the Arnold Arboretum and Arnold Professor of Biology at Harvard University, and Chris Edwards, the artistic director of Actors Shakespeare Project. And now, Arboretum Director, Ned Friedman.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's wonderful to be here this evening, and I thoroughly enjoyed part one, and I'm really excited to see part two tonight. As you mentioned, this is really the infancy of a collaboration, only year three, between the Arnold Arboretum of Harvard University and the Actors Shakespeare Project. But already we have really been through almost everything, from the fog of Macbeth pouring out of a magnolia grove by the Honeywell building on a cold, chilly evening in the fall, to a magnificent warm day in the sun in the Leventritt shrub and vine garden with Jane Austen. And now in this new world that's so different, it seems even more important that we double down on making sure that the arts and nature join together as much as we can in the Arnold Arboretum. My backdrop is actually from our ginkgo collection just the other day. And I hope, even though the scenes we'll see tonight will not be filled with fall colors because they were shot just a little while ago, I promise you the fall colors are coming on very strongly at the Arnold. And it's been magnificent. To date, since the pandemic broke in March, almost perhaps 1 million people have visited the Arnold Arboretum to find solace, to find beauty, to find time with families in these beautiful Olmsted design landscape and our trees. And I hope that when you look at and see what's going to happen tonight, that you'll be reminded that beauty of nature is something that's central to the arts, the humanities, not just the sciences when it comes to the plants that we grow. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. I want to again thank, as you did, Peter and Leslie Ciampi. It's worth mentioning that Peter Ciampi began his lifelong journey with the Arnold Arboretum as a boy growing up in Boston. And it could not be nicer than to think that Peter and Leslie have been here to support and allow us to put this program on. And Chris, I'm going to let you take it away. Chris Edwards is the artistic director, as Cheryl mentioned, of Actors Shakespeare Project. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how are you? Thanks, Ned. Thank you, Cheryl. Before I get started, I would just want to say that Harvard University is situated on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Massachusetts people and strives to honor this relationship. So once again, thanks, Ned. Thanks, Cheryl. Thank you to the entire Arboretum staff who supported and helped to breathe life into this crazy idea that we came up with about a year ago. Also, thank you to all the ASP staff and all of our supporters who have helped to keep us moving forward during this challenging time for everyone. Lastly, I want to give a special thanks to Austin DeBesch, who is our director of photography and who is the brains and expertise behind the project. It would not have been possible without his commitments and his kindness and his generosity. So thank you, Austin, for that. So very, I actually don't have the words to give back to you everything that you've given to us over the last 2 months, but thank you, we love you. So this project grew out of several early ideas. One, it was a way for Actors Shakespeare Project and the Arboretum to continue our 3-year relationship, as Ned mentioned. We've done Macbeth, Pride and Prejudice, and we were scheduled to do Henry V, but obviously COVID put an end to that. But we were able to raise some money and work together, and we came up with this idea. It's been a wonderful possibility for us and a great pivot on Henry V. Also, this project was also a way in the moment, in the social justice moment, for at least for me and for our company, to look at the idea of Shakespeare and nature, but also look at it with a cast that is predominantly BIPOC. Far too often in the history of performing Shakespeare, BIPOC artists are rarely invited to the party when it comes to shows like this. So that was also part of the process. Tonight, you'll see monologues, scenes, and sonnets in different locations at the Arboretum with our actors, but you will also see some contextualization of those locations by some of the Arboretum staff who all have been wonderful during this project. The scenes will be from Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest, Macbeth, and a few sonnets. These scenes were all picked mostly based on the environment. There's a quote from Shakespeare that's not in the second part, but started the first part, which is, "And this our life, exempt from public haunt, finds tongues in trees, books in the running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything." So we tried to listen to the trees and the stones and the running brooks and let those parts of nature tell us what scenes from Shakespeare we wanted to put into the environment. And that is what we have done for these both parts of this project and the second half of what you'll see tonight. So once again, thank you all for being here. Very excited to have you. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Steve Vieira, our production manager, who shall start our film.
Now ere the sun advance his burning eye, the day to cheer, and night's dank dew to dry, I must upfill the osier cage of ours with baleful weeds and precious juiced flowers. The earth, that's nature's mother, is her tomb. What is her burying grave? That is her womb. Oh, mickle is the powerful grace that lies in herbs, plants, stones, and their true qualities. For not so vile that on the earth doth live, but to the earth some special good doth give. And not so good, but strained from that fair use, revolts from true birth, stumbling on abuse. Virtue itself turns vice, being misapplied, and vice, sometimes by action, dignified. Within the infant rind of this small flower, poison hath residence, and medicine power. For this being smelt, with that part cheers each part. Being tasted, slays all senses with the heart. Two such opposed kings encamp them still, in man, as well as herbs, grace, and rude will. And where the worser is predominant, full soon the canker, death, eats up that plant.
My name is Laura Mele. I'm a horticulturist here at the Arnold Arboretum. I've been here for only 4 years. I'm kind of a new timer among the crew. Some of our crew members are 40 years in. So yeah, this has really been a dream job for me, taking care of Peters Hill mostly. I really love that Peters Hill is a little bit more wild than the rest of the Arboretum, and I'm pleased that it's allowed to be a little bit more wild. And so I think that visitors appreciate that, and I appreciate that. There's a certain sense at Peters Hill where I get more of a connection to how long it has been here and how many people have cared for it before I got here and how many people will care for these exact trees hopefully after I'm gone. And there's like a sense of continuity that for some reason I feel more on Peters Hill. I'm not sure why. It can be very humbling, and it is very humbling. And I'm really grateful to be able to be part of that. That's something that's such a refuge for people, myself included. One touch of nature makes the whole world kin. I experienced that here at the Arboretum, and particularly with our current conditions with COVID. The Arboretum has offered community to people, and in times that are so strange right now, and I've been able to witness that. So it feels really good to be able to see that it's like community is not only human beings, you know, it's our whole ecosystem. So to be able to see that, I really think it kind of reflects that quote from Shakespeare. Trees are such a witness to everything for such a long period of time, you know. They see us through the worst, and it all keeps going on, and it'll all be okay. But I really feel myself like a sense of solace in being able to be part of this, actually this very small ecosystem of the Arnold Arboretum.
There be some sports are painful, and their labor, delight in them sets off. Some kinds of baseness are nobly undergone, and most poor matters point to rich ends. This, my mean task, would be as heavy to me as odious, but the mistress which I serve quickens what's dead, and makes my labors pleasures. I must remove some thousands of these logs and pile them up upon a sore injunction. My sweet mistress weeps when she sees me work.
Alas now, pray you, work not so hard. Pray set it down and rest you.
Oh, most dear mistress, the sun will set before I shall discharge what I must strive to do.
If you'll sit down, I'll bear your logs myself.
No, noble creature, I had rather crack my sinews, break my back, than you should such dishonor undergo while I sit lazy by.
It would become me as well as it does you. You look wearily.
No. Noble mistress, it is fresh morning with me when you are by at night. I do beseech you, chiefly that I might set it in my prayers. What is your name?
Miranda.
Admired Miranda. Indeed, the top of admiration. Worth what's dearest to the world. Oh, you? So peerless and so perfect, are created of every creature's best.
I do not know one of my sex. No woman's face remember, save from my glass mine own. Nor have I seen more that I may call men than you, good friend, and my dear father. But by my modesty, I would not wish any companion in the world but you. But I do prattle wildly, and my father's precepts I therein do forget.
I am in my condition a prince, Miranda. I do think a king. Hear my soul speak. The very instant that I saw you, did my heart fly to your service. And for your sake am I this patient log man.
Do you love me?
Oh, heaven. Oh, earth. Bear witness to this sound, and crown what I profess with kind event if I speak true. If hollowly, invert what best has boded me to mischief. I, beyond all limit of what else in the world, do love, prize, honor you.
I'm a fool to weep, but that I am glad of.
Wherefore weep you?
At mine own unworthiness, that dare not offer what I desire to give, much less take what I shall die to want. Hence bashful cunning, and prompt me plain and holy innocence. I am your wife, if you will marry me.
My love most dearest, and I thus humble ever.
My love, then?
I, with a heart as willing as bondage ere of freedom. Here's my hand.
And mine. With my heart in it.
The king comes here tonight.
Thou art mad to say it.
So please you, it is true. Our Thane is coming.
Give him tending, he brings great news. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts. Unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, or keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts, and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers. Wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell. Then my keen knife sees not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold.
Hold!
Is this a dagger which I see before me? The handle toward my hand. Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. My eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still. And on thy blade in dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is a bloody business which thus informs unto mine eyes. Now, o'er the one half world, nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Thou, sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate at my whereabouts, and take the present horror from the time which suits with it. Whilst I threat, he lives. Words, to the heat of deeds, too cold breath gives. I go, and it is done.
The Weeping Beech here at the Arnold Arboretum is part of a larger beech collection, actually 128 European, Asian, Native American trees in the collection, and the weeping beech is very special to me. The leaves and the branches of that tree fall all the way to the ground. They form a green curtain from spring to fall, amazing green leaves. And when you go inside that curtain, if you will, then you find yourself in almost a sanctuary, an enclosure that's almost otherworldly. The beech collection is one of 8 collections at the Arnold Arboretum that are part of what's called the Plant Collections Network. That network actually focuses on long-term preservation of germplasm for research. And because the beech collection is in that collection, it actually represents probably the largest and most well-documented collection in the world. One of the most exciting things for me here at the Arboretum has been collaborating with Actors Shakespeare Project, because the Arboretum is special to me, theater is special to me, but having a chance to unite those things, the Arboretum and theater, has just been a high point of my work here at the Arboretum. The Arboretum is an amazingly special place. I think it's an extraordinary gift for anyone to be able to be here, particularly in the time of COVID. It's a way of being actually in this elemental form of nature. It's really important to be able to see that there is this world of nature out here, that it's accessible to anyone who has the good fortune to actually be out here. So I can't imagine living without nature. I feel that thinking about one touch of nature is another world, and as part of a world of nature, I think much that goes on can be forgiven, because nature forgives it all. And if we're part of the nature's world, then we can be forgiven, and we can actually celebrate life, celebrate the life that we actually have, in fact, and how we're united with nature on all levels.
Ooh. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime decline, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
I was an intern here in 1999, and one of the first tasks that was put before us as interns was to learn how to water and care for the bonsai collection, which was a bit unnerving at first. But the more time that you spent with it, the more time you realized how special the collection was. And the more time that you spent with the people who were actually taking care of the collection, you realized how dedicated they were to the health and well-being of the collection and preserving the history of each one of the pieces. One touch of nature makes the whole world kin. Well, I'm certainly not a Shakespearean scholar. I didn't do well in school with Shakespeare, but I think what that means to me is something that I've especially observed when children take a look and first see the bonsai. They look at it and it's something that they're not intimidated by, and they're still wowed by it, but there's something that they can relate to, and that really piques their curiosity. And so I think about, us all becoming one with nature, and sometimes nature can be a little overwhelming and a little scary at times. But bonsai really melts those barriers away, and you can have your own special way of listening to them and taking the time to understand more about what they're about. And that's what the Arboretum is really all about. I love working here. I've been here for 20 years now, and in one capacity or another. And I think that my favorite part about working here, aside from working with plants, has been that there's something new to absorb every day, and I feel as though I could be here another 20 years and still really never be able to capture the full glory of the place.
So are you to my thoughts as food to life, or as sweet seasoned showers are to the ground. And for the peace of you I hold such strife as 'twixt a miser and his wealth is found. Now, proud as an enjoyer, and anon, doubting the filching age will steal his treasure, now counting best to be with you alone, then bettered that the world may see my pleasure. Sometime, all full with feasting on your sight, and by, clean starved for a look, possessing or pursuing no delight, save what is had, or must from you be took. Thus do I pine and surfeit day by day, or gluttoning on all, or all away.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you so much for watching part 2 of The Nature of Shakespeare. It's really, really beautiful and special. I wonder if we might get started. I was moved by the music tonight. Chris, could you talk a little bit about the music in the piece?
Sure. The music was created by Dewey DeLay, who was our composer. Dewey is a sound designer here in town who does a lot of work with theater, but also has done work in the past with television and film, and he's also a jazz musician. So Dewey's amazing. You can pretty much show him what you talk to him a little bit about what you're working on, and then he just sends you a bunch of stuff, and he's like, give me notes, tell me what you think, and you're just kind of blown away by it. So I literally didn't give Dewey, I gave Dewey maybe one note on the music, and it just had to do with switching a piece around, but he's phenomenal sound designer.
Yeah, there is something really special about his music, and I feel like it jives really well with the environment and then also the text itself.
Yeah, he did a really great job of, because one of the things that we were working with was simplifying, getting the words and the nature. He did a really great job of making the music intricate but also simple. There's not a lot of instrumentation, and the stuff that's there resonates, I think, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Before we get too far into the discussion, I want to make sure that we have our actors able to join us. We have 2 actors with us tonight, in addition to Chris, who not only was the director, but also, as you saw, performed several pieces in tonight's episode. So welcome to Omar Robinson and Jade Gora, who played multiple roles in part 1 and part 2. You want to say hello and maybe just share a headline about what this experience meant to you before we get to people's questions.
Okay, I'll go first, Omar.
Ladies first, please.
So for me, it was wonderful getting out and to see colleagues that I miss seeing their faces in person, even if it was from 6 feet away. And also I got to be barefoot in the Arboretum, and it was just kind of like, it really was like, get back to nature, breathe in the air, feel kind of free, when in moments like this, we are not feeling as free as we normally do.
It was so jarring and energizing for me. That was the first time I had been outside for an extended period of time, and I guess at that point, maybe almost 5 months. So that was invigorating, to say the very least. And also, like Jade said, just meeting the actual eyes of family, essentially, was just unreal. I was super grateful to have that.
It was a long day, a 12+ hour shoot day when we were there at the Arboretum all together. And it was this reunion of sorts with each other, but also with the environment itself, having performed there several times previously. So we have some questions coming in. We're going to start with a question from Bill, who is asking, was the Tempest scene filmed in real time?
Yes, it was. We had done a couple takes, not that many, honestly, of the scene, but we definitely ran it from start to finish. It's very deeply emotional, as you saw. So in order to ramp up to that, we at points definitely felt like we should probably just do the whole thing. It's pretty quick. And ramping up to essentially a proposal takes a lot, one might say. So short answer, made longer. Yes, it was shot all the way through.
We kept talking about trying to find a way to keep it theatrical as well. So yeah, we did long shots with 2 cameras. We shot with 2 cameras.
Right, which makes some of the capturing of the different perspectives easier. But I was amazed, actually, and this speaks, I think, a little bit to the way that Actors Shakespeare Project is set up, Chris, in having a resident acting company. So Jade and Omar, have you 2 been on stage together before?
Not on an ASP stage.
Yeah, not on ASP stage, but we have worked together before.
We got like 8 years, you and me?
Yeah.
We are also with an educational, social justice focused company, Theater Espresso, as well. So we would see each other very early mornings. That's something we're very used to, doing a lot of shows for, nearly a decade together. But we have yet to share an ASP stage.
Duly noted. Except for this one. So I think it's interesting that the ensemble, the Actors Shakespeare Project, has a resident acting company. And because of that, because we worked together so much over time, there is sort of a shared language, almost a shared appreciation for one another that allows us to dive into something like this, I think, a little more quickly. And maybe that was part of the ability to capture that scene in doing one take. Ned, I wonder if I can toss it to you for a second to expand a little bit on what you were saying in the intro. And then Cheryl, you touched on this as well about the two coming together. So Ned, I wonder if you could speak to the importance of the Arboretum right now during COVID. And you mentioned the number of visitors was about 1 million. How does that compare to regular times? And why do you think the Arboretum and then this particular project is important right now during COVID?
Yeah, I mean, we actually don't have precise estimates because we just installed our first gate counter. So 1 million is probably an underestimate of the number of people. But what I can say is that when the Arboretum was born in 1872 and then designed in the 1880s with Frederick Law Olmsted, if you read about what was intended, it's free every day, it's open to everyone, there isn't one gate with a gatekeeper, you can walk in from anywhere and everyone is welcome. And we've translated, old words. I use the term radical accessibility. That the key to the Arboretum is that we have to always challenge ourselves to be more accessible, more welcoming, and to find the way to connect people to the space, because in a city, you need respite. Even on the best of days, your family needs to be on a blanket in the pine collection. And on the worst of times, and it's not just the virus, it is the awful reckoning that this country is going through in terms of the history of racism, of slavery, and of every manner of inequity. The Arboretum, I think, has an opportunity to try to remind people of the better angels of ourselves, that there are places where everyone is welcome and everyone should feel welcome. And that's not necessarily to say it's easily accomplished. But right now, I think people are finding that this is a place to reset the soul. And for me, to have Actors Shakespeare Project here is deeply important because of the nature of the group, the fact that you are a family, just like as you heard in the interviews with the people I work with. We're a family. This isn't work for us. This is about our relationships. And I think the vibe that I feel when I hear you talk about working together, the fact that you're engaged in social justice, in education, in trying to bring the arts to the world, it feels really wonderful. And so this is just an extension of what we do every day. We're trying to figure out, and I can't say we have it all figured out, but we're constantly trying to figure out how to make the world a little bit more beautiful and a little bit more welcoming and a little bit more healing is what I would say.
Thank you, Ned. You always speak so poetically about the relationship of our two organizations, but also about the Arboretum and what it means to the residents of Boston or anyone who comes to town to visit who could take advantage of the accessibility of the space. I love the idea of being better angels of ourselves and a place to reset the soul. Cheryl, can you talk a little more? You mentioned this in your interview about the two worlds coming together, theater and the Arboretum. How does that reset your soul, those two pieces coming together? And how did you see the Arboretum through fresh eyes through the experience of working with us on this project?
I actually think that I saw it first when I worked with Chris and with Actors Shakespeare Project on Macbeth. And we had no idea if people were going to come or weren't going to come. And I talked to him about it later, and it was the same thing that happened now. Actors getting into the landscape, which just amazed me because I thought they were amazing. As he said, they became more articulate in a way, or in a different way. So they actually were working with the wind, the environment. In the case of Macbeth, with the fog. In the case of where we were with all the different locations in the Arboretum this time, those places became part of the scene. They became part of each person's monologue, whether it was Jade actually, and we let her touch one of the bonsai in the bonsai pavilion. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But it was this touch of nature, and that nature actually became part of the scene. And it just felt like that throughout the whole thing, that the weeping beech for Macbeth, or the shrubbery in around Dawson Pond, those actually became part of the cast. They were characters with those scenes, and the actors were there with it, so it all worked together. And so for me, it was exhilarating, really, just to see this happening.
Speaking of the bonsai, Julie is asking, what's the oldest one in the collection?
There is one there are a couple that are actually over 260 years old. They're just pretty amazing. And Steve Schneider, who you actually saw talking about them, they're his babies as well as his 5 sons. And they just get really, really wonderful care in our bonsai and penjing pavilion. And it's not open right now, but I encourage anyone when we can get back there just to come and see it, because it's a very special collection, from the oldest down to the newest ones. We actually are making bonsai trees, as time goes by.
There are several questions coming in about the selection of scenes and why this particular selection, as well as the selections of the locations. So open the floor to you, Chris, or anyone else.
There's a lot of thought that went into what scenes to use, a lot of different variables, one of which was scenes that were accessible. The other was scenes that had nature imagery. And also, like I said at the beginning, one of the things that I did, Cheryl and the production manager and myself went to the Arboretum along with Austin, and we looked around. We were there for a good, 5 hours just walking around the Arboretum. And I've probably been going back and forth to the Arboretum over the last 3 months. I've probably been a good 10, 15 times of long extended periods of just walking around. And I'm not, generally speaking, I'm not sort of a nature guy, like a guy that goes out into nature all the time. You know what I mean? It's just, I like it, I appreciate it, but I don't hike, I don't go on like treks through nature. But I did find myself moving through the Arboretum, and the environment would speak to me. For instance, we went into the beech tree, which was the scene that we did Macbeth in, which is, as Cheryl said, like a huge umbrella with these gnarly branches, and the thing has been there forever, and it kind of comes in and out of the earth, and it looked like a serpent. And so I would just walk to a space and just sit there, and I know a lot of Shakespeare, and I just said, I'm just going to let the space tell me what this needs to be. And it was Macbeth, which was and my first initial thought was to do the witches scene, double, double, toil and trouble, or something like that. But there were reasons we couldn't, because it was 3 people, and that made social distancing much harder. But then I found those monologues, and there was something about holding onto a tree and the energy that resonates from a tree that just felt right. So for the most part, we moved through the environment, and I tried to let the environment tell me what was there. A little side of thing that was going on too was that I think that nature in Shakespeare, at least what I've seen of it, tends to use nature as a filter or a witness to what is happening in the social world. And often nature sits in judgment, or when the social world is off, nature is used as a metaphor to say how it's off. So that was working. And so we looked at this idea in the first part of sort of life impossibility, like trying to find a way into life. And then in the second part, we just added a little bit of death in there. The idea that there's a process by which things change, which kind of is like the Arboretum and the same changes of the season. So it was there was a lot of different things. And much of it for me, I think, is about a feeling, just a feeling that comes across with the language and the environment. I think the last thing I wanted to say too is something that you brought up with Cheryl. There is something that happens for an actor in nature. They speak what is there. They're able to speak about and to what is there, and it speaks back to them. Versus on stage, they have to speak to an audience and pretend that that piece of, plastic or that piece of 2x4 with plaster on it is a tree. And there's no energy in that. There's really no life energy in that. And when you come out and there's running water and there's leaves falling and the breeze hits you, it just enlivens you differently. And Shakespeare initially, though he did it on stage, it was out in the open air. And there's something about that.
I wonder, Jade and Omar, if you could comment further on that. Sarah Stackhouse, our dear friend and former ASP employee, is asking, did any of you understand the text differently because of the setting? And I wonder if Jade and Omar, you could speak to what Chris just said in response to Sarah's question.
I mean, Chris, see, that's why you're the director. You're so good. You hear those words? I'm so energized. Again, I keep revisiting that. The energy thing is what's so interesting, to touch on what Chris said. Not having to generate the energy to create an idea or paint a picture. I've been doing this long enough, the acting thing long enough, where I guess I kind of forgot about that part of me because I've been generating so much. But having energy already be present and being able to draw from that, I felt like it woke me up in ways I hadn't been awake in a while.
Yeah, and I won't add a lot to that. I felt kind of similar in the sense that I, especially getting to be barefoot, but not like in a box or in a room, and standing there feeling breeze and having the trees kind of be lighting and making weird patterns on our bodies. It was just kind of like, it was definitely a fresh breath and releasing for me.
Can you speak a little bit further, Jade, to the bonsai experience, because you were so connected to those trees?
They're so, I was allowed to touch them, I definitely had a moment. They're kind of these tiny giants, these beautiful tiny giants that you want to touch them, but you want to revere them as well. So I was like, it's going to be the most gentle touch. I'm going to touch you like you are my child. And they do surround you with this kind of energy that you're like, you will grow and continue to be here and continue to feed and energize us with your energy. I'm talking to them like they're people, but basically they fed me in that instance, and actually were kind of calming force, because sometimes you're like, am I going to remember what I'm going to say? And being surrounded by them was definitely calming while energizing.
That scene partner was so alive, and we don't think when we're doing sonnets too often of having a scene partner, right? But it was as if you were engaging with them and speaking to them. It was a really cool way to experience that sonnet. Go ahead, Chris.
I just want to say this thing too, like being a part of acting in it, but also sitting back and seeing those actors do their thing. I think one of the things that occurred to me is that when you're doing it by a bonsai, or you're doing it on a bridge, or you're doing it under this great big tree, there's this feeling of insignificance from a human, and I don't mean that in the negative. I mean that in a space of like, actually my little BS, whether I'm gonna miss this line or say this the right way, a lot of that goes away because you see how insignificant you are. But in that insignificance, you see how much more part of a whole you actually are. And so it takes the onus off of the self and I think it puts your energy out into the world, to the universe. I don't know. It sounds a little esoteric, but that's how.
No, that's beautiful. And I think that's how Shakespeare experienced the world, right? I mean, that it's so much more connected to nature in Shakespeare's time. Someone asked if Nani is asking, does anyone know if there were places like the Arboretum set aside in the time of Shakespeare? It's such an interesting question. I don't know, Ned, if you have any perspective on that.
I don't. There certainly would have been estates that would have had, nature in some ways tamed. But I can tell you that the first arboretum for the public was created in England in about 1839 or 1840. And it was a novel concept. And it was actually part of our sort of foundation. Olmsted visited it when he went to England and wrote about his travels there. It was to be open in those days to the workingmen of the city of Derby. And so it's an interesting thing. The concept of an arboretum is actually not ancient. There would have been botanical gardens and things like that, but a collection of trees, and coming back to Chris, your beautiful statement about how trees sort of ground you and help you gauge your sense of the universe, and not, as you say, not negatively. It's not that you feel insignificant so much as they help, their duration. They live for hundreds of years. They will be born before us and live well beyond us, just like those bonsais. Jade, I mean, you were next to bonsais that were born 150 years before you were, and will still be going. And there's just something about time and size in an arboretum that it is not about knowing the names of anything. It changes how you feel, and it somehow allows you to reflect in meaningful ways about what it means to be human. I don't know how to put it, so I don't want to go too far, but I think each of you has touched on this, and I hear it and it resonates.
Thank you. That's really, really lovely. A couple other questions coming in about partnerships in the future. And I think someone answered in the chat that yes, we've performed twice live at the Arboretum previously. Once a production of Macbeth and also a production of Pride and Prejudice. And we were hoping to be there last spring, but COVID prevented that. So I'm sure that we'll be back and cooking up more interesting ways to use the landscape, COVID or not. Let's see, As You Like It. Thank you, Melinda, for that suggestion, Chris. Someone's mentioning As You Like It.
That's what we were planning for possibly next year. So we'll see.
Yep. Stay tuned.
Yes.
Stay tuned. There's a really interesting question from Grace about the director and the actor is potentially finding opportunities when presenting Shakespeare with video or film that are exciting as a change for a live theater company. I like the word exciting. I don't know if it was only always exciting, but maybe Omar and Jade, while Chris thinks about that a little bit, you could speak to your experience. If you've done film, television kind of work before, if that's new to you, and what's different about doing this kind of text on video.
To speak to this instance, this production specifically, this was I always enjoy when I can be smaller in relationship to things. I guess that sounds so strange, but I guess in relation to the comment that was said about not insignificance as in like presence or being, but it just as far as like being able to broaden the scope and see like that I'm this tiny thing on this grand, the map of the world, the extent of the timeline. That something about that smallness is empowering to me. And so while being on camera, I like not having to feel the need to push or having to add anything else, because I'm there, we're out here. There's absolutely, again, like that notion of not having to expend extra energy to create what isn't there. It's all there. And I like that. And I guess with less in the way, I can connect directly with the text and not be worried about going up in anything like that. So yeah, I felt that more in this particular filmed experience than I have in other things in a while.
Yeah, and I think for me it was, as Omar said, connecting to it in a different way, and the fact that, and this had a lot to do with Chris, I feel like, being able to connect to it in a way that related to me, as opposed to just being steeped in how Shakespeare is supposed to be, or how Shakespeare is supposed to be acted or put out. And it was, yeah, it was more just like, this is what I see in this, of course, with some direction, but this is how I feel in this moment. And this is how this relates to me, and being on film without it being as large as it might need to be if we are in a house and I need to reach somebody 5 rows back. So,
Or if you're playing Hamlet, Omar, and you're in a very, very large church downtown Boston.
Big, glorious, beautiful cavern of a space. But I think of Jade, just like my mind just lit on fire when you said that too. Because and also to jump back to Chris's previous comment, as Black artists, we so rarely get to just be in the space, out in the whatever the project is. There's always, not always, but frequently there's something, the notion that we have to add a little something extra or to explain why we are here, especially in a Shakespearean context. I've had to do that too many times, honestly. So it was just beautiful to just be.
Chris, you had something that I think you wanted to say in response.
I got a much greater appreciation for the making of film and how much time, you always see we'll fix it in post, we'll fix it in post, we'll fix it in post. You're spending so much time. It's like for theater, it's the tech, you have the tech process, which is a couple of days, but film is like you're always in tech. It's like you're always in tech. So that was great. I think also one of the things that's cool is I've always thought that sort of what Jade was saying, like for so long, actors, particularly actors of color, or trans actors, or LGBTQ actors, have to change who they are to play Shakespeare. They have to often leave at least half of who they are to really move into these roles. And so many people in the history of performing Shakespeare say you have to raise yourself up to some standard to perform this stuff. And let's see how, what you bring to make Shakespeare resonate. I think filming this allows, I believe this always, but I think filming this allows for us to see how Shakespeare resonates through these actors, and that the people that are performing are actually more important than, the icon or whatever, whoever Shakespeare was, and the industry of Shakespeare. So I find that interesting. And then I also found in the filming, often I believe that, God is in the details. They say God is in the details. But I actually think God sometimes is in the mistakes, the little mistakes that happen. And sometimes in theater, these mistakes will happen and you don't have it for posterity. It's gone, and then the actor may have liked what happened, or they did it, and then they try to recreate it. For example, in the Macbeth scene, and it's a very subtle thing, when Paige, who plays Lady Macbeth, is talking, she starts talking about calling the spirits on. There's a small little bird in the background that's chirping, chirp, and it starts chirping really softly. The more she moves through that monologue, the chirping sped up. Now, I don't know if that was a random thing, but here's this actress putting this energy out into the world, and this chirping starts speeding up. Now, we could never recreate that. If that happened on a stage, it would be gone forever and nobody would know. But now it's there. And that's just, it's just stuff like that that I really appreciated.
Oh, the bird, the bonsais, the willow, so many beautiful things. We want to thank all of you for coming. We're going to wrap up now. Marianne's asking what's next. Is there any other series we would be interested in? Maybe the Canterbury Tales. Ooh, that's an interesting idea too. I love this collective thought that's generating ideas. We'll be thinking on these suggestions. So many thanks to all of you. And if you are so moved, you are welcome to visit our websites and make a donation to the nonprofits that are the Arnold Arboretum and Actors Shakespeare Project. The theater community, as you know, is struggling to figure out how to exist in this time of great challenge during COVID. We are so grateful to you for engaging from around the world. Thanks for people dialing in from other countries and other parts of the United States. And we're extremely grateful to Ned and Cheryl and to the whole team at the Arboretum behind the scenes for this incredible partnership that is humbling and moving to all of us. Thank you for letting our two families come together and work together in partnership. Thanks, everybody.